Welcome to the CMO Spotlight, and I'm here with Colleen Murphy-Gomez, who's the Vice President of Marketing for iBwave. Welcome, Colleen.
Hi, thanks, Joe. Nice to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. So I wondered if we could just kick off the conversation with your telling us a little bit more about iBwave for those that aren't familiar with the organization or the company.
Sure. As a marketer, I always like to maybe tell it as a story. Okay, iBwave.
Great.
So have you ever been in a big office complex where you get no cell service? Walking down the hall, you have no service, right? Well, there's all these big cell towers outside and things like that, but connectivity doesn't go through walls all that well, right? And so what the designers, engineers who are building buildings do is they need to decide where to place all the cellular antennas and Wi-Fi access points inside a facility to give you optimal coverage when you're walking around, depending on how many people there are and what places. So that's what our software does. Is it optimally designs for the engineers and the builders where to put all that great connectivity equipment so that you get great service. That's what
Awesome.
I do.
So are the customers for iBwave primarily the building designers or building managers? Are they wireless carriers? Who are the
Yeah,
primary
all
customers?
all of the above. Wireless carriers, integrators, the people that do the design work and integrate equipment into facilities like that. Sometimes Wi-Fi engineers if they're doing Wi-Fi in facilities as well.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about your role as VP of Marketing, maybe also about the team.
Sure. I've been at iBwave about a year, and it brought me on board to see how we could kind of modernize our marketing approach in this space. I mean, we came up in the telecom world, and if the carriers and the telecom, we're a little old, okay, and in how we, maybe how we do things and how things have been done, and we just needed a way to reach new markets and new customers in different spaces. And we weren't really going to get there with the same traditional playbook, your webinar, ebook, trade show, product brochure, right? Those are core foundational kind of marketing components that I think are still really important and really valuable. But we also live in like a digital world, in a digital age, right? And you've got to reach consumers and multiple places at multiple times all over the world. And so I really wanted kind of a fresh approach to how do we reach that. And so I was brought in to kind of help make that transition, assess where we were at, what we had, what we were doing, and give recommendations and start doing experiments and finding out what would work for our business as we move forward. And I came to iBwave partially because a former mentor of mine worked at iBwave. My current boss I used to work with at my former company. And I was looking for a new opportunity, and they wanted to bring my expertise on board, and it was just a really great fit, I think, for both of us.
Great. So I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about your career path. I think you're originally from Minnesota, if I'm not mistaken, but you have made your way down south to Georgia, but you work for a company that's Canadian, right? So there's tell us about the journey, your career journey that led you to iBwave.
Yeah, I've worked for three main companies in my almost 20-year career. The first one I spent at a little company up in Minnesota. That's where I'm originally from. If you could hear the Minnesota, you can catch my accent in there.
You betcha.
And they were a scientific manufacturing company. Okay, so not in the telecom space. But then I came to TE Connectivity. That's was my next kind of career move. And the division I worked for was purchased by CommScope. And so I was there almost 10 years at CommScope, learning this kind of telecom space and wireless. And I've worked in that almost 10 years I was at CommScope, I had 8 different roles during that time. So I spent a lot of time going to different teams and different positions and learning different parts of that business. at some point in there, my husband and I decided we were kind of over Minnesota winters. He's from West Africa. He never liked the winters.
Yeah.
And my sister's down here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I wanted to be closer to her when we started a family, and Atlanta was a good market for my husband, for me. And so we just picked up and moved one day, and the company let me be remote, and I've been remote 9 years now, ever since.
Wow. That's
So,
great. That's great. So I'm curious if there's a piece of advice that either you wish that you had received early in your career, or maybe you would give to a young marketer starting out in their career.
yeah, the advice I would give is to experience different roles, try the different parts of marketing. I feel like when I first started, you could just be a generalist, right? Just be in marketing, and that meant a lot of things, and you had your hand in
Yeah.
everything. But what I've found, and maybe it's because I've been at a big company for almost 10 years, was that marketing has really gotten more specialized and segmented, right? So I wouldn't ask somebody today to be an expert in social media and paid Google and web design and product marketing, right? I mean, these paths have all kind of become very specialized, and there's a lot of different technologies to be utilized within each type of job. And I think you're idealistic when you come out of college. Everybody wants to work for Nike or Coca-Cola or Google, right?
Yeah.
And I find that that's not the average path for
Right.
marketers, right? Um, but to really understand what it means or which part of marketing you can find the most passion in, I think it's worth trying different parts, take different roles, try new challenges, do product marketing, do growth marketing, work with the brand team, and really see where your best fit is, where your skills fit, where your passion is. And don't let just kind of one marketing role turn you off because it maybe wasn't the right fit.
Yeah. I think also there might be a nice blend between taking the opportunities that come your way and proactively seeking the opportunities that you want. There's probably a mix there.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, for me, I'm the kind of person that likes a new challenge about every 2 years, honestly. So for me, it was fairly natural to look for the next opportunity and to find a new challenge and to ask for something. I find a lot of times we maybe don't ask what other options are there and maybe it's a role on the product team, but you can bring your marketing knowledge with you, and it makes you a better product person within your team. But I think it's important to just ask for those opportunities, ask what else is out there, ask if you can try something new. Hey, I see we don't use ChatGPT for anything. Could I just try some programs and do all the free demos for all these different platforms that have come out and report back, right? I mean,
Yeah.
find something that you're interested in, and if your company's not currently doing that, it doesn't mean you can't find ways to incorporate it and try new things.
Yeah, for sure. So I believe that everybody has a superpower. So I'm curious what you think your superpower might be.
Yep. It took a lot of time to think about this one, but my superpower is gifting. Okay.
Huh. Very cool.
I'm a good gifter. I like to find, take that person's personality, likes, and then find something unique or meaningful to gift. I'm a gifter.
Nice. So I'm curious where you find inspiration for your team, particularly. Like, do you find inspiration outside of work or within the walls, or what's the trick?
Yeah, I really like to kind of follow different marketing groups, organizations, different influencers, listen to a bunch of different podcasts, some marketing related, some not at all marketing related, just to get new ideas. And my team would probably laugh because I send them links on LinkedIn all the time. Hey, how about this one? Or have you seen this course, or here's a fun video. So I'm always trying to send those kinds of things and bring new and fresh ideas to the team. So there's a lot of different people on LinkedIn that I like to follow too, and different groups that are talking about new ways of doing marketing. And then I like to get multiple perspectives on it. Sometimes you can kind of go down a rabbit hole on one topic. So I like to just kind of mix it up and see what sticks, really, what sticks for the different people on my team, and try to find different things that they might find interesting or engaging. And I really find it important to just try new things and to find some inspiration, and to not be too rigid that we don't have room for creative experimentation. Tell the team, sure, try that. You want to try that? Let's try that and see what works. And
well, and it's leaving some room for failure and being okay that not everything is gonna work out when you're experimenting and trying new things.
Yeah. Exactly. And I actually have something called an inspiration day. It's actually coming up for my team here in a few weeks, and started at CommScope. Some leader that used to be there started it, but essentially I give the team the whole day off. We all take the same day off, and I say, here's $30, nothing, nothing big. Here's $30. Go do something that inspires you. Take a walk through the park, go to a museum. One time I took a glass blowing class. It's actually that right there.
Oh, cool.
Some glass paperweight I made for the
Nice.
inspiration day. This plate I painted on a different inspiration day. So I think it's interesting to just take those outside things that are not marketing related, not business related, but see what you can get out of it. How does it inspire you to be more colorful or to try new things? So I think it's important for me and for my team to do that.
That's great. Are there specific values that you either want to demonstrate to the team, or that maybe you would demand for anybody that would become part of the team?
Yeah. I do. I've got 3, and that's funny enough. They're actually written on this plate right here.
Oh, nice.
But I can remind myself, and they're for me personally as well as professionally. They're the same, and it's to be caring, to be courageous, and to be present. So that's how I view my leadership style, what I find important, and how I try to interact with my people. So caring, I think, is a very obvious definition, but it's always the person first, who they are as a person, not who they are as an employee, or what they can do for the company, or what they can do for my team, but just who are they, what's important to them, what matters to them. And I think caring for your people as a person first and foremost really helps pave the way for a good working relationship, and for when people feel valued and cared for and supported, they're much more willing to work harder for you, right? And so I think that's the most important thing, and I try to lead with that, number one.
Yeah.
Courageous, that to me means in speaking up when you have an opinion, even if it's not a common one, or trying a new project, even if you're not sure whether it'll be successful, and taking risks, and just having those, feeling okay to be engaged and to speak up, I guess, is the biggest part. And so I try to, let my team know too, I'm always here. I want the truth. And my former colleagues, my family, everybody will tell you, if you don't want the real opinion, don't ask me for my opinion. If you don't want the honest, answer. Now I still try to answer in the caring manner, right? But I think it's important to be courageous in how we interact in the projects that we take, and try new things. And then lastly, present. I have it back here, but I also have it on my monitor, because I would find myself doing 3 things at once. I'm like, oh, I'm a great multitasker. But then at one point I realized how bad that actually was. I actually shouldn't be a multitasker. I should be able to focus on one thing and give that my time and my energy and my attention. And so I still have to remind myself to not look at my email over here when I'm on a meeting and I'm, tuning something out if they don't need, don't need me in that moment. But I think it's important to be fully present um, with your people and in a meeting. And that came about with my son, always trying, little kids always trying to get your attention. I'm like, let me just finish this email. Or, let me just look at my phone for something. And I'm like, no, I just put it down. I'm going to give you all my attention and just be present in those moments. So that's
Yeah,
long-winded answer, but that's my, personal and professional values and mantra, I guess, that I live by.
I like it. I'm just so disappointed that the third one was not a C, but that's okay. We can move on from that.
I know, I should have thought of that.
Yeah. Okay. So as you might know, setup helps marketers connect with the best people and resources. And that usually means that we connect brands and marketing agencies together. And so we're not an agency, we're not on the client side. We live in that space in between. And so we really think a lot about that relationship between client and agency, brand and agency. So I'm just curious, either at your current gig or maybe even a previous gig, how you like to work with marketing agencies.
Yeah, I've worked with a lot in different functions, and I love to work with them for one. I think it's really important to get an outside perspective on what's happening, whether it's some new creative ideas or new campaign suggestions or somebody to take a look at your competitive landscape in a different way than you would have, right? As kind of an outsider, unbiased perspective. And so I use agencies a lot, sometimes just for short projects to help bring an influx of ideas. Other times as more of a long-term partnership when I've got gaps on my team and I need different people to fill those holes for the expertise that I don't have. And then we're not going to hire somebody on board for. So one of those two scenarios is how I typically utilize agencies, but I think they're a really critical mix, almost like just an extension of your team. That's how I think of them, as extra players on my team. I like to think of you as family, extend the same kinds of caring and presentness to those people as well. So I think they're just a really critical piece of the team.
Well, we often say that clients hire agencies typically because there's not enough capacity, don't have enough arms and legs to do the work that you need, or capability. You might be good at these 10 things, but there may be these other 2 or 3 things that you just don't have the expertise in-house to really accomplish. And so you lean on an agency to help you solve for something that's not a core skill within the team. So I'm curious, are there certain functions within marketing that you feel you almost always would want to get outside perspective, as you said? And then are there certain other functions where you feel are so core to the business that you really need to own them and would never think to get outside help?
Yeah, the ones that I think are core are the functions within marketing that attached to the strategy of the company and of the business. So your product marketer, the growth marketing might have that type of role on board. Operations, I think you have to have somebody internally. There's so many technologies and tools. I think you have to have at least one person who understands your business internally that can maybe manage other agencies or vendors that specialize in different segments of the technology, if that makes sense. But I think having somebody who understands your business intrinsically and deeply on your team to manage that, I think is really important. And then I think there's probably a middle layer of the really nice to have people on your team. You maybe could outsource it if you needed to an agency. I think that might be a little bit better in-house. I like how is having at least one graphic designer. Again, that just is fully understanding of the brand and is able to do things, especially in that role. You get thrown projects multiple times a day, every single day. I think that's a really good role to have at least one person, depending on how big your team is. Internally, that can do some of that work for you, because your image and how you portray yourself, even if it's just a simple data sheet, making sure it's on brand and in a nice format and template makes a difference to how you're perceived and how professional your company is perceived. So I think that one is a good role. I also find if you go to a lot of trade shows and events, really important to have an internal events person. If for no other reason than most events are like, you got to buy things on credit cards and you can't help it. It's difficult getting your outside vendors to do that and understanding all the products that we need to have on site and what those booths should look like. So those are some of the roles I think are really important internally. But I've worked with agencies that do events. I've worked with graphic agencies that have all been really great too. So I think for me, how I view kind of that agency dynamic and what's internal and what's external is, for example, when I came onto the team at iBwave, I said, tell me what you're good at to everyone on the team. I don't care what your title is or what your job description. What are you good at? What are you passionate about? And then go do that. Go do that.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, well, where are the gaps, right? What don't we have somebody good at? And is that a big enough need within my organization to justify adding a person to the team? Now you can only ever add so many people, as much as corporate has budget and desire to add hires. So then you just kind of whittle that down. Okay, I really need this one. This is my top priority, and that leaves these gaps. And so for us at iBwave, that left a content gap, someone to help us write really good copy, create brochures, not so much the graphic side, but the content side of it. We have a gap in terms of video creation. I've got 2 people on my team now that they're building up some of those skills. So they do some of the light work themselves, but bigger production stuff, we don't have that. PR, I think, is one that's really well done, outsourced. I've worked with some really great PR groups that just have the contacts that I don't have, and that would be really hard for kind of one person at one company to gain a lot of experience across different publications. So that we outsource that today to an agency, and that's been really great. And then we also found a gap that we didn't fully understand our funnel from a marketing perspective. When a dollar goes in and a lead is generated, can we get an accurate revenue attribution on the back end? And we didn't have enough expertise, somebody who had the expertise from start to finish, right? We had a little bit here and some over here, but not the whole technical picture. So we hired an agency to help us do an analysis and fully understand that from start to finish. And so that was a big one, and an SEO agency to help with that side of it. So worked with a lot of different agencies in a lot of different places, but I do think it just kind of comes down to that. What are the gaps in the expertise that you currently have on your team?
Yeah. So as marketers, we often are working with non-marketing functions within the organization. And so I'm curious how you demonstrate the value of marketing to the non-marketing functions. Particularly, I think with lead gen, it's a little easier because there's a direct ROI from hey, we spent this money and we generated a lead, and the lead converted or it didn't convert. But I'm curious, even for some of the softer, branding efforts and things like that, how do you demonstrate the value of marketing?
Yeah, it was one of the first things that I looked at when I came here was, what do we measure, right? What are we trying to achieve as a company? What are we going to measure? What do I want to measure? And then can I measure that, right? Because I've been at big companies with big resources that still couldn't figure out how to make the connections happen. And a lot of
Yeah.
times it's if you're siloed and there's big groups or big sales organizations, you've got to convince somebody really far up the chain that changing two fields in Salesforce, which means salespeople have to click an extra button, which you don't want to do, but you have to convince somebody that that's important enough to, to make the
Right.
change. And that can be really difficult. So I spent a lot of time mapping out what that would look like. And it takes the buy-in of your leadership team. So sit down with our CEO and CCO and say, what do you want to see? How do you want to see it? What's important to you? Okay, if I shared this kind of metric or this kind of story, is this what you're looking for? And I think it's different for every leader on their leadership team. Some really love numbers and want to see the data down to all the engagements, and others really don't care. They just want to, is it helping me get more revenue, right?
Right.
It just depends on how engaged kind of that leadership group is and what you're doing. And so that's at, the technical KPI kind of level, right? We try to track against things that matter metrics wise. And then showing the value sometimes is as simple as showing what you've done. And I
Yeah.
found a lot of times in marketing, we do all these cool things every day, right? We put out ads, we've got these new graphics, got this messaging, we put out a brochure. But in your company, how many people actually see that? So what I tried to do is at least every other month, send out a newsletter. I want to say that word, but send out an internal newsletter
Yeah.
to the whole company. Here's all the great stuff marketing has done. Here's
Yeah.
some ads. Here's all the new pieces of content that have been generated, blogs, articles, brochures. Here's the top press mentions. These were the top 3 LinkedIn posts for the month. I even do like a little section of meet the marketer. So meet somebody from my team and just a little bio about them. And really just try to share what we do, because even though it's extra work to do just an internal newsletter of that, I think it's cool. We do a lot of cool stuff. We do a lot every day. Marketing teams do so many things, and I just don't think they're seen by everybody, right? This brochure goes to these salespeople. This blog gets seen by like this group if they saw it posted on the website or on social, right? Or these groups of people see this particular piece of content, but nobody sees kind of the whole picture and all of the activity that we do to help drive business and support our customers and be out in the marketplace. And to your point about, brand stuff, it's hard to measure those things. It's hard to measure that top of the funnel activity that doesn't generate a lead and move into the database. And so
Yeah.
one of the things too that I've tasked my team with is to not care about the lead. Okay, that sounds bad, but to not worry about just adding a name to our database, right? What we really care about are the people that raise their hand and say, I'm interested in
Yeah.
what you're doing. Can you help me? Can you give me more information? Can I get a demo? Like that's the person that matters. And if we spend all of our marketing effort and energy and money collecting names to add to our database that may or may not go anywhere, we could be wasting a lot of time on the wrong metric, right?
Yeah.
On the wrong thing. So it's that shift to move to more of like this demand generation approach. I had my team ungate everything except for webinars, because you got to send emails to notify them. But I
Yeah.
said, if we collect names, great. but I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about them, right? I don't, if somebody downloads an ebook, we're not going to call them, right? I'm not going to spam them with emails. We'll provide valuable information. We'll put our thought leaders out there in the community, and really just try to provide good information. And when people are ready, we will be here to help, to accept that. So, finding value in the different places, especially if you're not tracking a metric against net new names added to your database, can be really tricky. And we've tried to implement, different things with our lead forms and with our measurement approaches, so we can compensate for a little bit of that. But I think it's just, it's critical kind of to have those KPI things for your external, what's working externally, and then showcase what you're doing internally to make sure everybody can kind of see all the really good work and effort that's happening.
That's great. All right. So I want to wrap things up with a couple of maybe non-marketing quick hitters here. So the first is there a movie or a book or a quote or a sports team or a band that really inspires you? And what is it about that thing that inspires you most?
Yeah. So the first part, quote, that's what kind of got me. Is there any quotes that inspire me? And I was trying to think, is it famous people said something important? But I have 3 quotes that always stick in my mind that I always come back to. First one is there's no point in embarking on an adventure in which you are certain to return.
Burn
And
the boats.
I think that's good for, for life and for work, right? You don't know how it's going to turn out, but, go anyways, see where that takes you. And it's actually, again, another thing here on my shelf. It says, put on your big girl panties and just deal with it. Okay. And the third one, I grew up in a little town called Monticello, and the quote is, Monticello, Minnesota is not the center of the universe. All 3 come from my father, not anybody famous, but those are things he would say all the time to me. So one, think outside of your space, of your city that you live in, or maybe it's your job that you're doing, right? Think bigger than that. It's not the center of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And he always told me the quote about the adventure was from Sir Edmund Hillary, but I've since Googled it to confirm, and I'm not sure it's really from him. But the embarking on an adventure which you're not certain to return from, I think it's just important. Maybe goes to that courageous piece too that I find so impactful for me.
What's your dad's name? We got to give a shout out to Dad for the quotes.
Shout out Dad, Michael Murphy.
All right. Michael Murphy from Minnesota says the 3 quotes. That's great. I love it. I'm curious, other than your family, where do you find joy outside of work? Do you have any hobbies or anything like that?
I love to read. Honestly, I like to read for the kind of escape part of it. My brain is always working and thinking of 100 things, especially, as a mom and wife and boss. And so sometimes I love to read just to just forget about everything. So I can't say, I read different business books and stuff too, but those aren't the ones that get me. It's just whatever shows up on my Kindle Unlimited that looks good that day. So I love to read and I love to dance, whether it's just in the car, crank up the music, all different kinds. I like R&B, I like old school, I like country, I like hip hop, like jazz. So I love to just kind of like dance and let out all the energy. And
That's great. All right. My last question for you is totally just for fun. I'm curious if there's a fictional story or a realm in which you would like to live other than our current realm.
so I think it's maybe because I was just reading some books about this Fantasyland. because I'm not really a big sci-fi Comic Con geek. I love them, but it's not so much me. But I would like to live in the realm of like fairies and witches and werewolves and like all of those mythical creatures. I don't know why, but that just sounds awesome. Like right, get some fae powers. I don't know, shift into a bear. I don't know.
Yeah.
It just sounds
Well,
crazy.
hopefully you watched the series Wednesday. I think it was on Netflix or whatever. Which is a spinoff of the Addams Family, and if you haven't seen it, you have to see it because that's the realm in which they live. It's pretty cool.
I should have said it that way. I want to live in Wednesday's world.
Wednesday's World. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Great. Well, so Colleen Murphy-Gomez is the Vice President of Marketing for iBwave. And thanks so much, Colleen. This has been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate the time, and maybe we'll connect up in Atlanta.
Sounds great.